So, Nama Om Vishnu Pathaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shemati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nevasesha Sunyavari Pashta Tadasatadine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. So let's jump into the Bhagavad Gita. So yes, Samavasachari, you can take us away by text 39.
Text 39. Yesha te bihita sankhye buddhir yoge tva imam srunu buddhaya yukto yaya parta karma bandham prahasyasi. Thus far, I have described this knowledge.
Sorry, Mother, did we read this yesterday?
We did read.
I read
40.
it. It's a long purport, remember?
Finished?
It's
Okay.
40.
Because
Yeah,
I
well,
wasn't
40. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, 40.
So shall I do the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Text 40. Neha bhikrama naso sti pratyavyo na vidyate swalpam apayasya dharmasya tryatyate mahato bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport. Activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christian says, what forfeit a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great culture Brahmana or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. This is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments here? This is a well-known verse. I'm sure you've heard it quoted often in class. Nehi bikramo nashosti pachivayama vidyate sarabham dhammasya tvete mahatobaya. So there's no loss or diminution in the activities of bhakti. Yeah, so Krishna's introducing the effect of devotional activities, or yeah. All right. So there's something I was going to mention, but it just passed my mind. Let's just look commentary here. Yeah, much the same. Endeavor in Krishna consciousness, Buddha yoga saves us from rebirth in the lower species and from remaining trapped in the wheel of samsara. There is no loss or diminution because all advancement is eternal. Material advancement, of course, is always temporary.
Can I
Yeah.
ask something a little bit more, Prabhu?
Yes.
It says in next life you could born in a Brahmin family, Brahminical family, Brahmana family culture, or in an aristocratic family.
Yeah.
So let's say if you born in an aristocratic family and instead of, I don't know, meeting any devotees, and you start drinking and smoking and enjoying that lavish life, how you can further, I don't know, elevate yourself.
Yeah. Now, Prabhupada here, he is paraphrasing a verse which comes later in the Bhagavad Gita. I think we know of that verse. I haven't learned that particular verse, but where Arjuna asks what happens to someone who is neither successful on the material platform or doesn't complete the path of Krishna consciousness in this life. Then Krishna then explains there is Arjuna says, does he perish like a riven cloud? And Krishna answers no. He would take birth, depends on his particular advancement. He may take birth in a family of transcendentalists. And Prabhupada humbly gives himself as an example. And also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, yeah, as being born in a devotee culture, atmosphere. So, and as far as being born, so the next one down, being born in a rich aristocratic family, as far as I have understood, this is referring to a pious aristocratic family, as you might find in India. So, for instance, these pious aristocracy, they will generally have. Repeating back, they will generally have a temple within their compound, within their house. You know, like in Jaipur is very famous for that, where the family opened up, or they created such a large temple for their deity of who's there, Radha Govinda, isn't it? Yeah, Radha Govinda. So that's an example of the aristocratic family which has been mentioned here. They are religiously inclined, and they're praying to the Lord. You know, it's not the those who so aristocratic. Yeah, it's not referring to, as far as I've understood. I think we can perhaps, I think philosophically, speculate that it can't mean, for instance, a rich family that's become rich from dealing in cocaine, etc., or in slave labor or something like that. They've made their money by hook or by crook, because eventually they're going to lose everything. So such irreligious or such karmic activities.
Thank you. Yeah,
so
sense.
that's what it's referring to. Yeah. So then, once material needs are met, and at the same time they have no need to worry about that side. But at the same time, they have an opportunity. They're exposed to worship of the Lord. Unless anyone else has any comments on that.
I have a question though.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I was just thinking about if somebody in life falls down, has a fall down, and according to this, there's no loss in Krishna consciousness. Is there Krishna consciousness stored, and then they have to, until they rectify themselves, which may take many lifetimes?
Yeah, you could say that. I like to sometimes see it as when you're playing you're playing a recording or playing a video, and just press pause. So everything gets paused. Everything's put on pause. One stops making advancement. But here, this is the law. This is the spiritual this is the constitution of activities which are directed towards Krishna.
So you cannot make advancement while you're being rectified from a fall down or something like that, would you say?
Well, no, yeah, you could say that. It's a good way to describe it. You actually, because all your kind of efforts is going towards trying to stay afloat. You're not actually going forward.
Yeah.
You're just trying to stay afloat. So you're getting purified. Hopefully you're becoming a little bit repentant. But that in of itself, from another perspective, that repentance can also lead to a further determination in Krishna consciousness. So I've seen that, I think I mentioned before, I've seen that with devotees who have left Krishna consciousness and they've come back twice as determined as they were before they left. But that's not very common, actually. A lot of devotees find it hard to make their way back into Krishna consciousness. Yeah, it's not so easy. But there are examples of devotees who do come back. So they've got, they've had some realizations and they've come to some conclusions. But the main purpose here, the main thing here, there is no loss of diminution, unlike material activities. If someone starts building a building, if they don't finish it, then they don't get any result. So Krishna consciousness, it's progressive from one life to another. I think we mentioned before that probably all of us, to one degree or another, was in contact with Krishna consciousness in our previous life. So now we're picking it up. Yeah. And we see
true, many devotees are saying when you join Krishna consciousness, if you have practiced in previous life, it takes around 5 years to reach the point where you left from previous life.
I don't know, you have to give some sastric proof for that. I don't know. I haven't heard that specific given 5 years, exactly at 12 o'clock and 5 years.
Not 5 years. It's a certain long time. I don't know. They said like 5 years till you reach the.
Yeah, I would have to see some praman on that, some sastric proof, So I can't comment on that. Some persons some persons join and they just, as far as I've seen, some persons join and they struggle coming to terms with, or they struggle to come to the platform of following the principles and etc. etc. And some persons join and they're just, everything just just goes so smoothly and they have no problem. They just take straight to Krishna consciousness. So obviously and that's when they just join. So actually they're not just joining, they're just picking up from where they left off. And it doesn't take 5 years. As soon as you become attracted again, then you're starting from exactly where you left off. To one degree or another. Okay, any other discussion on that? I'm just going to go to this verse, which is quoted here, 1:5:17. Yeah, one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service to the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So this is from Narad's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Srila Vyasadeva. So yeah, that just reminds me that someone could work very nicely on the material platform, very expertly and very nicely and very piously. Yeah. But actually at the end of life, all what they've accumulated becomes finished, gone. They have to start again in the next life, accumulating. But if someone takes to Krishna consciousness only for a week or for 2 weeks or for a year, then they're better situated than someone who spent a whole lifetime executing their material duties expertly, because it all gets lost at the time of death. But a devotee, he doesn't, he or she only gains, and they never lose anything. Yeah, that's the, and let's just quick peek into the purport there.
So like this, Krishna actually help us life by life to add more to the path so we can get back to him in the end.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And in the
So we
purport,
don't lose.
yeah, in the purport to Trakvasa Dhamam Chanamujam Hare, Srila Prabhupada is quoting Bharat Maharaj. You know that story? He quotes Chitraketu Maharaj as well. And at the end, he quotes Ajamil as well. So Prabhupada brings the example of Ajamil in the verse in Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada gives other examples in the Bhagavatam, Bharat Maharaj and Chitraketu. Although they fell down, for instance, Chitraketu fell down to offenses to Lord Shiva. But he never forgot the Lord, and he continued in the future. Same as Bharat Maharaj, he fell down in the body of a deer, but he didn't forget the Lord. So there's no loss or diminution. Yeah, there's Prabhupada gives those proofs. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look at text 41. Mother Lavanga Latika, you can read text 41, another well-known verse. These verses coming up now. Hopefully we're all quite familiar with them.
Okay, thanks. Vyavasyai yatmika bhutir ekaiha kurunandana bahusakahi anantascha buddhaya vyavasa yanam. Those who are on the path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 2262 states, Shradasabde Visvasa Kahe Shrudirda Nisjaya Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarva Karma Kritahai. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Savamiti Samahatma Sudurlava. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches. So by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of a student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasada bhagavad prasado, yasya prasada nagati topi, tayam stasya sastri sandhyam, Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. and by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions about this or comments?
Yeah, it says the whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically. So, I mean, it seems like I'm very much on the theoretical platform. I'm wondering how to get to like practically realizing that. Is that not just understanding like your swarup, like this is not about swarup, maybe it's just understanding what material nature is and what spiritual nature is? Like, are there 2 levels of understanding the soul?
Yeah. I tend to think what Purport is referring to here is theoretically means someone who is more like a Ghani. Okay, I think, but from a, I think you might be speaking a little bit or somewhat, perhaps a lot from the platform of humility, because you are engaged in Krishna consciousness. You have taken initiation and you're chanting the holy name and you're serving the Lord. So that takes a certain level of realization. That takes it off the it takes a certain level of realization of the authenticity of the practice of Krishna consciousness as composed to gross material activities. So you may not have, or we may not have, or we may not be walking around with the very abrupt realization that we are not this body, but some realization is there. That
yeah, I must notice that I will say that lately, when I read Prabhupada's, like some things he says about the soul and the body and how they're different, you know, he says it in many different ways.
Yeah.
And I must admit that lately, I'm actually getting deeper realization of that knowledge, not of myself as being a soul separate from the body, not experiencing that in like, but the actual what Prabhupada is saying about it, like logically, it's going in on a deeper level, so I'm understanding it more, basically.
Yeah, so that means you're having deeper faith in this principle. Yeah, you have deep faith in this principle. So that's what Prabhupada means practically. You are practically applying it in life. So Prabhupada says, this last paragraph is quite interesting. The whole process, actually having explained everything he has explained, however, depends upon Vigyan, knowledge that one is not the body. And the proof of that is one's lifestyle. And as you're admitting, you can, as we go on, and Prabhupada also says in another place that this realization comes from and it doesn't come unless one is living an austere life. So austere means following the regulative principles, and one is controlling the pushings of the body. And by doing that, you can get a deeper insight into the reality that we are the soul. So, but it's to different degrees of Prabhupada. It's not like black and white. It's like different degrees of this realization. Like Prabhupada says, There is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So I don't know if I'm making sense here, but it is gradual. Just like the sun rises gradually. It's not like the sun just boom, it's there in there. No, it rises gradually. So these realizations come gradually by applying ourselves to the process. But in essence, in answer to your question, I think Prabhupada is speaking here, the Gyanis verse, or the person who's not actually practicing the activities of the soul, which is to serve Krishna. If they say they are not the body, but they're not engaged in this practical service of Krishna, then they are just Gyanis, or that is just theoretical. I don't know if that helps. So that.
Can I say something? Maybe?
Yes, please. Yeah.
That's why I think we need to. That's why the more we understand why we follow the four regulative principles, why we read, and why we try to serve, it's not. I think in the beginning it's like suppressing and mechanical, but the more you understand it, the more the results. You will understand that it's for your benefits. It's like you are in the prison, and you don't like it in the prison, and you need to follow those rules. But the more you follow them, the more you will feel freer inside yourself. That actually you do good what you do, and that gives you freedom, not restriction.
Yeah, that's very good. Nicely put. That's called the regulative principles of freedom. And that's mentioned later on in this second chapter, the regulative principles of freedom. So we restrict ourselves, but then as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we will be more inspired by the activities of bhakti, and we will spontaneously be following the principles. Whereas in the beginning, as Madhu was explaining, in the beginning we have to apply ourselves to following the regulative principles. Yeah, so the regulative principles of freedom. Sounds contradictory statement. Yeah. Now there's something else about this verse which is quite important for us as members of ISKCON. Can anyone say what that is? Again, I mentioned yesterday, part of ISKCON history. This verse has a specific role for our ISKCON movement.
To satisfy the spiritual master.
Say again?
To satisfy the spiritual master.
Yeah. I mean, you're going in the right direction. Can you give the specific historical incidents? I'm testing everyone here. When I start to explain the story, you'll go, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's...
Satisfied by the more you understand, you will know when you satisfy the spiritual master, because everything will become better around.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to give, yeah. Prabhupada actually, one time he told that one time he told one of the disciples that in the early 50s, that in the 50s, before obviously he'd come to the West, he actually was reading a commentary on this verse by Srila Vishnu Thakur, and it really struck him. It struck him to such an extent, well, it struck him so much that it really heightened his resolve to follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's order to preach Krishna consciousness in English. It was a specific point in his spiritual life. When he heard this purport by Vishnu Thakur, he became even more desirous and determined to spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking world. So, here is part of Vishnu Thakur's purport, which Prabhupada read. So I'll read it. It's just a part of it. Of all kinds of intelligence, the best is intelligence focused on Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, one's intelligence becomes single-pointed or fixed in determination. One thinks the instruction of my spiritual master to worship the personality of Godhead by chanting, remembering, serving his feet, and so on are my only sadhana, my only sadhya, my only livelihood. I am incapable of giving up these instructions, either in a stage of practice or in a stage of perfection. They alone are my object of desire and my only responsibility. Besides them, I can desire no other responsibility, not even in dreams. It is all the same to me, whether I feel happy or unhappy, or whether my material existence is eradicated or not. All right. So Prabhupada heard, he read that, and he was just thought of the instructions he got from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yeah. So as we can see, Prabhupada was Bahushaka. No, he wasn't Bahushaka, excuse me. That means many branched. He was Vyasatmaka Buddhiya. Yeah. That's in an, yeah, you see, Bahushaka means one is one whose intelligence, who's not resolute. Their intelligence is like, is many branches of it. In other words, they cannot focus on anything. They find it very hard. But those on the path of bhakti, they are focused. And Vishwanath and Vishwanath further gives more details on it. That focus is on serving the orders of the spiritual master. He takes it from a general being focused in bhakti to a very specific, focusing on the orders of the guru. So Prabhupada gained great inspiration for starting his ISKCON society based on this verse. So there you go, some history of this verse, okay? Vyasatmaka buddhi ekaha gurunandanaha bahushaka inantascha buddhiyo vyavasayanam. So quite important verse for us. Any other questions or comments on this verse? All right, let's read 42 and 43, which is describing about those who are Bahushaka. Let's see whose hand is there. Model Mongol, you have your hand. You can read 42 and 43.
Okay, thank you. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravandanti avipaschita veda vada ratha partha nanyad ashtiti vadina kamatmanaha svarga para janma karma pala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam Bhogaishvarya Gatam Prati. Men of a small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to the heavenly planets, resulting good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. Purport. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposal for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence. It is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially for Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a profound of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced person to be situated in determined action of Krishna consciousness, as fools are attached to the flowery of poisonous trees without knowing the result of such attraction. Unenlightened men are similarly attracted to such heavenly opulences and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karma Kanda section of the Veda, it is said, Apana, Somam, Amrita, Abhuma, and Akshayam, Hava, Chaturmasya, Yajina, Suktram, Bhavati. In other words, those who perform the 4 months penance becoming eligible to drink the somarasa beverage to become immortal and happy forever. Even in this earth, some are very eager to have somarasa, to become strong and fit to enjoy the sense gratification. Such persons have no faith in the liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifice. They are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasure of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandana Kanana, which means there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women, and having a profuse supply of Soma Rasa wine. Such bodily, such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to such material, temporary happiness as lord of the material world.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yam imam pushpatam bhajam bhavatanti paschitaha. All right, any curiosities about this or any questions?
So that means they go to the moon planet because only there they drink Somarasa.
Yeah, I think this is what it means by this Jyotishtoma. So Jyotish is the Jyotish is the realms
Light.
of is the planets, and Stoma is, that was mentioned here, Somam, to specifically the worship of the higher planets was Soma, right?
So there do they have a chance to go to be trained in bhakti and go back to Krishna, or they need to reborn on the planet Earth?
Well, not much there, not much. I mean, if they happen to, I mean, there's devotees all over the universe. So if they're blessed by the association of a devotee, then they may have a chance. But generally, they can be overwhelmed by the abundance of sense gratification. That's why actually it's described later on in the 11th canto, where those in the heavenly planets, they desire to take birth in the earthly realm because they're devotees, but they know that they're painfully distracted from serving Krishna because of the sense gratification.
So what about if devotees, let's say, burn their karma, and on this planet Earth they start becoming richer? So to diminuate debts, they can be how they could not become attached too much on the material gain, because sometimes devotees, I don't know, they're gonna become more richer than they were before. So that can be an obstacle for them to.
Well, generally, Krishna is, I think, as you probably noticed, within the community of devotees, most are not wealthy. Some are, but most of the devotees may not be wealthy. Some are, of course. Now, the wealth that comes to a devotee is not coming from karma. It's being given by their bhakti to help to facilitate their bhakti. So it's not going to be an impediment in their spiritual life. Yeah, it's coming from, there's different types, expansions of Lakshmi. There's the material Lakshmi, which is very chanchala. Someone may be rich for some time, but then after some time, they will lose their wealth. But generally, but I was trying to think where Prabhupada speaks about this, but he describes that the wealth of a devotee, it's given by Krishna to actually facilitate their devotional practice. Yeah, so it's not going to degrade them. Just like Prabhupada was extremely wealthy. He had thousands of Americans giving him their money. But he didn't use one paisa, as he said, for his own sense gratification. He used it all in the devotional service of the Lord. So generally what I'm trying to say is that if a devotee is going to come into money and he's going to be distracted from bhakti, then Krishna's not going to allow it. Yeah. Krishna will not want to lose his bhakta. Yeah. And now so therefore, we might see that as a whole, not as a whole. We do. I suppose we could do a survey. I mean, like all devotees have the means to live. Most devotees will, all have the basic necessities. What's it called? The bare necessities of life. Dun, 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 dun.
What
Have
I
the
mean
bare-
is sometimes the body, you can see them, they have a big TV, and then they have a lots of posh things they're gonna have. Maybe they didn't have before, and somehow they start gaining a lot of material desire, and then service start to go a bit down.
Yeah, well, then Krishna will make arrangements. Yeah, if they're starting, if they are if their wealth that if they are okay, let's just say they are becoming then they do come into wealth, and they could be becoming distracted from Krishna consciousness. Don't worry, Krishna's got his eyes on them, and something's going to happen somewhere down along the line, so that they can chant with more determination and feel more dependent upon Krishna. Yeah, so it's a job to know what exactly is going on with each and every devotee. There's a lot of factors involved, but generally it is described like that. That generally, the devotees which are like Maharaj Yudhisthira, for example, he's very, very wealthy, but he used that all in the service of the Lord. So it wasn't the wealth that is seen like the materialist accumulates wealth and then they lose it. So as much as I can say on that, unless anyone's got any other comments on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, now in this commentary, it's interesting. Now what we're going to recognize that this is the first time that Krishna's mentioned the Vedas here. It's the first time he's actually mentioned the Vedas to Arjuna. And he's telling Arjuna to give up the karma kanda mentality. In other words, that means using the Vedas to gain material fruits and benedictions. That's what you to health, power, wealth, longevity, etc., and attaining the heavenly planets. Now it's interesting because in the previous set of verses, Krishna encourages Arjuna to fight by appealing to the same mentality that he now condemns. Do you remember? He was saying, fight, you attain the heavenly planets. It was our fight, you attain the heavenly planets.
But there's not that's a different heavenly planet.
No, same ones. Same, that was the way Krishna was. There's only one. So Krishna was telling Arjuna, if you fight, if you die, then you gain the heavens. But now he is condemning that. So he's speaking on a higher level now. He's speaking on the level of Buddhi Yoga. Yeah, he's speaking to Arjuna on a higher level. Yep. Not on the same level he was speaking at when he was addressing the Kshatriya within Arjuna. They're speaking on a higher level here. So this is known as Buddhi Yoga, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to that. All right. Any questions or comments on that? Now the next verse is oh my, not working here. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so let's the short purport next one. Anupama, Mother, you like to read the next verse? 44. Are you there? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sorry.
Oh.
Hare Krishna.
Oh,
Yeah. Text 44. Bhogeshwara Parakshatanam Tapaditya Chetasam Vivashyamika Buddhi Smadu.
Madhavadiyate.
Thank you. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary the Nirukati says, when the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is said to be in samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, not for those who are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy.
Yeah, okay, so sure, Purport. So so if one is attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas, then they cannot fix their minds on Krishna. Yeah, they difficult to fix their minds on Krishna. So they use the Vedas to as basically they're using it, reading here as an excuse to avoid the purport and the purpose of the Vedas, which is, anyone know what the purpose of the Vedas is? So the ultimate goal of the Vedas
Is to become Krishna conscious.
Yeah, it's Krishna. Krishna will describe in later on 15:15. He will describe that he is the Vedas and he compiled the Veda, and the Veda is meant to understand him. But they use the Vedas as an excuse to avoid the Vedic purpose, which is to surrender to a Krishna. So in the next verse, Krishna is going to explain to Arjuna how one can overcome this mentality. Yeah. So perhaps Mother Anupam, you can read this next verse as well, because it's quite short what you read there.
Okay.
45.
Triguna Vishaveda Nishraya Guna Bhavarjuna Nirvando Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Cheta Atmavan. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to those three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Purport. All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there's Brahma Jignasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. From them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom, advising him to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities, such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. The transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So here, as we said, Krishna is now instructing Arjuna to rise above just fighting just because of to gain the heavenly planets or to avoid infamy. Yeah, so in other words, be established in self-realization. Yeah. So any questions or comments here?
So one of the keys is tolerance.
Yeah, that's yeah. So Krishna is not telling Arjuna to forget the Vedas. He's just he is directing Arjuna to the Upanishads aspect of the Vedas. He's directing him from the Karma Kanda and directing him to the Upanishads. You saw that in the purple? The Upanishads is where one begins to inquire into one's constitution as a soul. So that's described in the Upanishads. So Brahma Jignasa, Prabhupada quotes the first two words from the Vedanta Sutra or the Brahma Sutras. Once someone's been engaged in pious, fruitive activities, karma kanda, they begin to question their existential position. So, in other words, they are taking direction in religious household life from the brahmanas to obtain their to obtain their, one sense, their situation, their sense gratification, their family situation. They will engage in pious activities. Yeah, that's called karma kanda. Now, the person's given them direction. Traditionally, they're going to be the brahmanas. And traditional brahmanas, if they're real brahmanas, they're going to be leading simple, austere lives. So how it should happen is that those who are going to these brahmanas for direction in karma kanda, they will observe in the persona of these brahmans, they're peaceful, they're happy, and they're free of stress. But they're living much more simply than I am. So then they begin to question the brahmanas. Please, my dear brahmana, you have been directing me in these fruitive activities to please the devas and get our material necessities met. But I see you yourself, you are living a simple life and you are very happy. So please tell me your secret. So then the brahmana traditionally will go, aha, well done. Thank you. Brahma Jignasa. Now inquire into your real self-interest above just satisfying the needs of you and your family. You know, there's more, as we say on the street, there's more to life than shopping. Yeah. Brahma Jignasa. Now's the time to inquire. So that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna here. Put aside the karma kanda section of the Vedas and come to the Upanishadic side of the Vedas. He's not, because only the atheists give up Veda completely. The Gnostics, yeah, they will completely reject Veda. So Krishna's not saying that. He's just saying, rise above this karma kanda. Okay, I've told you about going to the heavenly planets, but actually forget about that. That shouldn't be the reason why you're going to fight. So then he's going to furnish Arjuna with other reasons to fight, which ultimately is going to be bhakti. All right. Any questions on that or any comments? Yeah. Okay, a few minutes left. Let's the same vein, this next verse in the same vein, perhaps I can have a read of this one. Yivan atau udapane savata sampradodake tavan saveshu vedeshu brahmanascha vijanataha. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. All right, I just give a little prelude to this verse. Just like within a village, in a traditional Indian village, there will be different wells for different functions, as far as I was told. There's a well for washing the cloth. There's a well for washing the pots, you know, like that. Now, all the purposes of the well can be served when they go to the riverbank. They can wash the pots, they can wash their cloth. Yeah. So all the purposes of the Vedas can be served someone who knows the purpose behind them, which is Krishna. Yeah. So that's a little, okay. The rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karma-Ganda division of the Vedic literature are meant to encourage gradual development in self-realization. That's what I was mentioning there before. And the purpose of self-realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Savasya Hridi Sanivisto. The purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna, the primal cause of everything. So self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with him. The relationship with the living entities with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter, 15.7. Mamaivam so jiva loke. The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. That is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just read the translation. We've just got a couple of minutes left. Oh my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family, that like of a Chandala, Dogita, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage, such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. So one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and one must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly kingdom for a better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of Vedic rituals, nor is it possible to study all of the Vedantas and the Upanishads thoroughly. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the purpose of the Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by the great Vedic scholar Prakashananda Saraswati why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist instead of studying Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be a great fool and thus asked him to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. In the age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna, and the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all mysticism, of all Vedic mysticism. Hare Krishna, Hare Om, Tat Sat. All right. Any closing comments or questions on this? That just summarizes up very nicely what we have been explaining, actually. Yeah. All right. If there's no questions, we can pause there. Don't worry. There's going to be no loss of diminution for this reading. We will not lose anything if we stop. We just continue from next week, even if we pause. Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for being with us for this reading. What's the day today? We're on Wednesday, isn't it? So tomorrow we have Bhagavatam Rita. We're going to hear more. So if you have the time, please join us. We were reading last week about a foolish Brahmana who got the Gopal mantra. Yeah. So continue hearing about that. Any last comments? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Wish you
one last
well.
one.
And,
Modi Prabhu ki jai.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Gauranga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Leave. Hare Bol.